Entitled mother demanded I let her kid borrow my car for practice. I never thought owning a car would turn me into a target for an entitled parent, but here we are. I am 30 years old, and I drive a small, reliable sedan that I take extremely good care of. I live in a townhouse neighborhood where everyone mostly keeps to themselves, except for one person, the woman I now refer to as the entitled mother. She lives 2 doors down with her 16-year-old son, who recently passed his written permit test. Good for him, genuinely. But for some reason, his mother decided that his milestone meant I owed them something. It started one Saturday morning when she knocked on my door holding her car keys and my spare key, which I keep in a lockbox attached to my doorframe. I was immediately confused. She told me that her son had passed his permit test and needed a real practice drive, and since I wasn't using my car right that second, she expected me to let him borrow it for the afternoon. I genuinely thought it was a joke at first. I laughed and told her that absolutely not. I do not lend my vehicle to anyone, especially not an inexperienced driver who just passed a written test. Her smile vanished instantly. She said I was being selfish, that I had more than I needed, and that her son deserved the opportunity because he earned it. I told her again that my car is not a community vehicle and that driving is a serious responsibility. I also explained that my insurance does not cover unlisted drivers. She waved her hand at me like I was being dramatic and said insurance is just paperwork. Then she said, "You do not even have kids. You do not understand how important this is to him." I reminded her that having kids does not entitle her to other people's property. She muttered something under her breath and stormed off, telling me she would remember how inconsiderate I was. I thought that was the end of it. But the next day she showed up again, this time with her son standing next to her, trying to look confident but clearly uncomfortable. She said, "He needs practice. You can sit in the backseat if it makes you feel better." I told her, no means no. That was when the teenager looked at me and quietly said, "Honestly, I do not even know how to brake that well yet. I almost hit a curb yesterday." His mother snapped her head toward him, shushing him aggressively. She tried to cover it by saying, "He is just being modest." That was the moment I realized this was more than entitlement, it was dangerous. I told them both that the conversation was over and closed the door. Later that day, I overheard her telling other neighbors that I hate children and refuse to support young drivers. One neighbor texted me to warn me that she was trying to paint me as some kind of monster. The thing is, people around here know how she is, so most did not believe her. But she was persistent. She started showing up at random times, shaking her head dramatically when she saw me getting into my car, sighing loudly like she was the victim. One night she actually slipped a note under my door saying, "If something happens to my son because he cannot practice driving, that will be on your conscience." I laughed out loud at that one, as if her son's safety was somehow my responsibility. The real twist came when I talked to another parent on the street. She told me that the entitled mother had already tried to get 3 other people to lend their cars. One said no because the teenager is known for being reckless on his bike. Another said no because he saw the kid roll through a stop sign during a supervised drive. And one neighbor almost agreed, until the teenager bragged that he would drive fast because he already knows cars. So she had been shut down repeatedly, and now she was targeting me because she thought I would cave under pressure. Things escalated when she tried one final stunt. She waited until I was carrying groceries and asked loudly, in front of neighbors outside, "Are you ready to let my son borrow your car now?" I said, "No, and please stop asking." She rolled her eyes dramatically, turned to the neighbors, and said, "See? Some people just do not believe in helping young drivers succeed." Before I could respond, her son interrupted her, and honestly, I will always appreciate this part. He said, "Mom, stop. I do not even want her car. I am not ready. I barely know how to brake." She turned beet red, grabbed him by the arm, and dragged him inside without another word. Since then, she has avoided me completely. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just angry silence. The funny part? Her husband ended up taking their son to an actual driving school, the responsible place for a new driver to practice in a controlled environment. So not only was she wrong, but she could have solved this weeks ago without harassing every neighbor on the block. Now I am left wondering why she thought I would ever hand over something as expensive and personal as a car to a near stranger with no experience. Some people treat boundaries as insults, entitlement as logic, and other people's property as community resources. I am not one of those people. So no, I do not feel bad. And I still cannot believe she thought he passed a written test meant give him the keys.